She laughed hard. Not the cute kind. Not the light chuckle that floats off someone's lips when they're caught off guard by something charming. No, this was cruel. Sharp. Like a fork dragging across a porcelain plate. You, she said, through a mouthful of Chardonnay. A business. It was the way she said you that did it. Like the word itself was a joke. Like I was. That night, I didn't argue. I just nodded, smiled, and did the dishes like I always did. But inside me, something cracked. Quietly. Like a hairline fracture in a wine glass. The kind you don't see until it shatters in your hand. Her name was Rachel. We'd been married 5 years. Lived in a modest townhouse in Cary, North Carolina. Dual income, no kids, Netflix on Fridays, Costco runs on Saturdays. Life was safe. Predictable. Beige. She worked in marketing for a beauty brand and made more money than I did. Something she never let me forget, even when she pretended to. I taught high school history. I loved it. Still do, in a way. But after 10 years, the burnout was real. Every week felt like a loop. Same kids, same lesson plans, same faculty meetings that ended with nothing but more paperwork. So I had an idea. It wasn't some half-baked daydream. I'd been researching it for months, quietly, at night, when she thought I was just scrolling Reddit or watching basketball highlights. An online business centered around interactive educational tools, history flashcards, gamified learning apps, printable lesson bundles. A space where teachers could buy and sell resources to help lighten the load. It wasn't sexy. It wasn't glamorous. But it was something I believed in. When I finally brought it up over dinner, it wasn't even dramatic. I said, I've been thinking about building something. An education platform. Something that could help teachers make extra money, and maybe even be sustainable long-term. She paused mid-bite and squinted like I'd just started speaking Latin. Wait, you? A platform? Like coding? You can't even figure out the smart thermostat. I tried to explain it wasn't about coding. I'd hire someone for that. I had content. I had the audience. I had a vision. But she wasn't listening. She laughed. Not out of malice, I told myself at first. Just disbelief. But that laugh stuck with me, like a splinter in the back of my throat. And the worst part? She didn't even remember it the next day. To her, it was just a moment, a throwaway reaction. But to me, it was a verdict. A judgment. You're not the kind of man who builds things. She didn't say it. But she didn't have to. So I stopped talking about it. And I started building. At first, it was nothing fancy, just late nights in our guest bedroom after grading papers. I taught myself basic UX design. Took free courses on business structure, email marketing, Shopify. I listened to podcasts during my commute. I signed up for teacher forums under a fake name, asked questions, took notes. I used $400 of my own savings to register the LLC. She never noticed. She didn't ask. We were in the same house, but in two different worlds. She watched Selling Sunset and scrolled TikTok. I watched tutorials on digital marketplaces and built Google Sheets like my life depended on it. And slowly, something started to form. A skeleton, a sketch, then a heartbeat. Within 3 months, I launched the first version. History Hub, I called it. Corny, maybe, but it felt real. I uploaded 5 lesson bundles. Simple stuff. Printable worksheets, review games, project outlines. I priced them low, $4.99 each. In the first week, I made $11. It was barely enough for a sandwich, but to me, it felt like magic. Like someone out there, a stranger, saw value in something I created. I kept at it. Nights turned into weekends. Weekends into quiet obsessions. I didn't tell a soul. Not even my best friend, Nate. Not my brother. Definitely not Rachel. Because the truth is, it felt good to have something that was mine. And also, I didn't want her laugh in the room with me. Not again. A year passed. Sales climbed. Slowly, then steadily. $200 a month turned into $600, then $1,200. I reinvested every dollar. Hired a part-time developer from Upwork. Commissioned better branding. Built an email list. Created a course on classroom engagement. By year 2, I made more from History Hub than I did teaching. But I didn't quit. Not yet. I wasn't done. I added affiliate links. Created a subscription tier. Started working with a few content creators who taught AP history. I gave them free access, asked for feedback. Some of them became superfans. And still, I told no one. At home, things got quieter. Rachel and I drifted. Not because of the business. That was just a symptom. The real problem was deeper. She didn't see me. Not really. She saw my routines, my flaws, my paycheck, but not me. When I told her I was thinking of quitting teaching, she scoffed again. For what? She asked. To become some kind of online salesman? I told her I wanted more freedom, that I was tired of being stuck. She didn't even look up from her phone. Everyone's tired. That's life. So I waited, and worked, and watched. Then, one morning, about 2.5 years in, she came home early from work. She looked deflated, pale, like a balloon that had lost all its air. I asked what happened. She muttered something about layoffs, budget cuts, restructuring. She'd been off-boarded. The irony? Her words, not mine. I just wish I had something of my own, something no one could take away. I didn't say anything. I just nodded. But inside me, a spark lit. Because I finally realized I had that. And soon, she'd know it too. She was pacing in the kitchen, barefoot in her robe, clutching her phone like it had betrayed her. Which, in a way, it had. Her company email had stopped working that morning. That was the first sign. Then the call from HR. Then the off-boarding packet. And just like that, she was unemployed. Rachel had always been proud of her job, sometimes too proud. It wasn't just work to her. It was status, identity, proof that she'd made it. So when it all vanished, I saw something in her I hadn't seen in years, doubt. Do you think I'm starting over? She asked that night, curled on the couch like a kid after a nightmare. Like, from scratch. I wanted to be kind. I wanted to hold her. But I couldn't forget the laugh. Instead, I said, maybe starting over isn't the worst thing. She didn't know I had an office by then. A shared workspace across town, small but clean, with a glass door and my name, my real name, on it. She didn't know I had 2 part-time employees, a monthly revenue that would have made her jaw drop, or that I'd been featured in a podcast for educational entrepreneurs. She didn't know, because I never told her. A week after she lost her job, she applied for positions at agencies, freelance gigs, even retail. Nothing landed. She grew restless, quieter, more irritable. That's when I made the decision. A part of me still doesn't know why. Maybe I wanted to help. Maybe I wanted to test something. Or maybe I wanted her to see what she'd laughed at had grown teeth. I posted a job listing for a content assistant on one of those local gig boards. No business name, just a description: remote, flexible hours, strong writing skills, light social media work, $17 an hour to start. She read it out loud at breakfast, scrolling on her phone. This one looks doable. Probably some dude selling supplements or crypto PDFs, but whatever. Could be something. I sipped my coffee. Why not try? She sent her resume that afternoon. I created a dummy inbox and responded under a different name. Brandon. Polite, vague, professional. We scheduled a Zoom call. She dressed up for it, sitting in the very guest room where I built the empire she mocked. I was in my office, camera off, voice disguised slightly by a mic filter. She didn't recognize me. Not even close. She talked about her strong eye for detail, her experience managing brand narratives, her eagerness to support a growing business. I had to mute myself more than once, not from laughter, but from disbelief. The woman who once told me I was chasing a fantasy was now auditioning to be part of it. I hired her. Her first task was to organize lesson bundles by theme and input them into a database. She was good at it. Efficient. Focused. I paid her on time, gave polite feedback, kept the tone distant. She never asked questions, just sent the work and waited for more. Week by week, I handed her pieces of the empire. Small ones, never enough to tip her off. She formatted course slides, wrote blurbs, even edited product descriptions I'd written myself. Once, she even complimented the original author. "This guy's voice is really warm," she said over text. "You can tell he cares about teachers." I stared at that message for a long time. She worked for me for 5 weeks before she started getting curious. She asked for a company name to list on her resume. I gave her one, a shell name tied to a secondary LLC. She Googled it, found nothing, started asking more questions. Is this part of a bigger project? Where's the content coming from? Are you building something long-term? That last one made me pause. Because yes, I was. Not just a business. A legacy. One she'd laughed at. One she now depended on. Then, late one night, she called out from the bedroom. "Hey, have you heard of this site called History Hub?" I froze. "What about it?" I asked, casually, still typing. She walked in, laptop in hand. It popped up in this teacher forum. People are raving about it. Apparently, it was started by a former teacher, some guy who built it from scratch and scaled it crazy fast. I looked up at her. Sounds impressive. She nodded, scrolling. Kind of wild, right? Like, who is this guy? I smiled, turned back to my screen. I'm sure he's just someone no one believed in. She didn't get it. Not yet. But she would. Because the next phase was already in motion. I had a speaking event coming up, a small conference for educational startups. My name was on the flyer. My photo, too. I didn't invite her. But I knew she'd find it. And when she did, the pieces would fall into place. Every file she edited. Every check she cashed. Every lesson she thought she was helping someone else sell. She thought she was working for someone. She never imagined it was me. And when she finally figured it out, I had one more surprise waiting. A formal offer letter. With her name at the top. And at the bottom, her new title. Content Assistant. Starting wage, $17 an hour. Right below that, CEO, Daniel Carter. Founder, History Hub. The same man she once laughed at over dinner. She didn't speak for a long time. She just sat there, letter trembling slightly in her hand, as if the weight of the truth was finally catching up to her. Not just that I'd built something she didn't believe in, but that I'd done it without her. That every click, every lesson, every dollar earned was soaked in the silence she once mocked. You're offering me a job? She finally said. Her voice wasn't angry, it was confused. Fragile. Like the ground beneath her was moving, and she was trying to find where to place her feet. I'm offering you the job you've already been doing, I said. At a fair wage. But you're my husband. I nodded. Exactly. And when I told you I wanted to build this, you didn't just laugh. You made me feel small for even dreaming. She set the letter down. I didn't mean it like that. But you did. You meant every word in that moment. You laughed because you believed I couldn't. She looked away. Her hands folded, unfolded, then folded again. I didn't think you'd actually do it. That was the part she didn't understand. Of course she didn't think I'd do it. Because she never looked at me and saw a builder, or a leader, or a man who could surprise her. She saw someone safe. Someone stuck. Someone who stayed in his lane. I built all of this, I said, nodding toward the screen, while you were looking past me. A silence stretched between us. Not cold, just honest. Uncomfortable honesty has a sound. It's not yelling or slamming doors. It's the sound of realization arriving too late. She looked at the screen, then at me. Are you punishing me? I shook my head. No, I'm showing you the truth. The version of me you couldn't see until someone else paid you to work for him. She blinked. Slowly. So what now? I leaned forward. Now? You decide if this is still something you want to be a part of, not as my wife, not as a partner out of habit, but as someone who finally sees me. Because I'm not hiding anymore. And I'm not asking for permission. She looked down at the letter again. The same rate she once earned in college, back when we were both dreaming out loud over frozen pizza and rented movies. Except this time, it was coming from me, the man she didn't believe in. Her voice dropped. I never wanted to hold you back. You didn't, I said. You lit the match. You just didn't stick around to see the fire catch. We didn't speak much after that. She didn't take the job. Not right away. She needed time. To process, to mourn whatever image of us she'd been clinging to understand that the man who once asked for her blessing had built something that no longer needed it. And me? I kept building. Because when you grow in silence, you don't just surprise the world. You surprise yourself. She laughed at my dream. So I made it real. And by the time she saw it, it was too big to laugh at. Too big to ignore. Too big for her to control. And maybe that was the dream all along.